Hey, it's New Thought Talk with RevSteve. I am the senior minister at the Spiritual Awareness Center in Fresno, California. Fresno, the heart of the Central Valley. The Central Valley, the heart of the great state of California. It's a great day. It's an incredibly great day. I'm glad to be here. I hope you're glad to be here today. I hope as you started this day, before you even opened your eyes, that you claimed the gift, the good that today is, that was gifted and created just for you to experience, just for you to express at a greater and higher degree of livingness. Today is your day. Grasp it, hold it. It's a gift from the divine for you to do with as you see fit. And I hope that you choose to see fit as a creator in your own right in how your day unfolds. Regardless of what life brings at you, you have the ability to be a decision maker, a choice maker, and utilizer of divine power. And that's what we're talking about. We've been going through this little book by Ernest Holmes, this thing called life. Last week we finished up chapter 4 and we started into chapter 5. And I don't remember exactly where we left off. Poor program prep for today, but we're going to start here. I'm just going to kind of go back to the beginning of the chapter. You know, this thing called life, Ernest Holmes, when he talks about this thing called life, he's talking about divine principle. He's talking about source, God, the thing itself. The idea that, we often say there's one life. When we talk about one life, we're not talking about just the moving, breathing, conscious, semi-conscious individuals or plants. We're talking about the entirety of creation, because in truth, it's all part of the life energy, the life principle. We have, through years of evolution, humanity has come to a point of recognition of the beginning recognition of the truth of who they are, I should say. I am. And then from that point on, our evolution was an evolution that took place as a result of consciousness. And it's been just like, evolution that evolved through a physical process. There's been ups and downs. There's been gains and losses. But there's been a theme, a common theme, just like with physical evolution. There's been a common theme of ever higher, greater degrees of growth, consciousness, self-awareness, recognition of the truth. We've had, we call them spiritual teachers. They have shared truths. They have shared insight. Sometimes it stuck with the human race. Sometimes it got shunted aside. Ultimately, it got to the point to where this thing that we call science of mind and spirit was the point where Dr. Ernest Holmes took this concept of new thought and he kind of put it in a way where he taught and he understood that science is an exacting philosophy, if you will. And in a way, science really is kind of it's a scientific philosophy, but it's still a philosophy of sorts. And the basic premise of science is that if someone discovers a certain principle and in that discovery utilizes that principle in whatever it's related to, that anybody else using that same principle should be able to do the same thing as the discoverer. The principle we're talking about here is the divine principle, the creative force, the consciousness behind all that is. And although in the early days of religious science, a lot of what Holmes taught, what he believed, was still rather speculative, theoretical. As we have moved through and beyond the 20th century into the 21st century, a lot of what he theorized, science now is giving a concreteness, a recognition of the truth of what it was that that Dr. Holmes put together in this thing called The Science of Mind and Spirit. But he wrote some great books besides the Science of Mind book, which we refer to as the textbook. We went through this thing called You. We're doing this thing called Life. I may go back to one of his earlier books here later on in the year, The Creative Process and Success. If you haven't read it, I had someone call me last night and we were talking about it. And just the amount of information in there that when you grasp, you put it into practice in your life, that the effects are phenomenal. The most important thing about this is that you put these tools into practice. It's nice to have an intellectual understanding of things, but it doesn't do us much good. It's only when we begin to put these principles into practice in our day-to-day life experience, and I want to emphasize, in our day-to-day life experience. We can't do it on Sundays or once a week. It's kind of a 24/7 thing. We talk about thought having power. A single thought has maybe a little bit of power. A trend of thinking has a great deal of power. Consciously directed trend of thinking has an immense power in directing our day-to-day life experience. So, chapter 5, Holmes says, the moment one realizes that he or she can use the creative power of this thought to free him or herself from bondage, that moment they start on a new adventure. You know, if you haven't considered that your life is an adventure, maybe you want to reflect on that as a concept that you might choose to embody for yourself, because life is an adventure. You know, usually we think of life and adventure as, explorers and people that discover things and get out in nature and they have these adventures. The mere fact that you are living is an adventure, because, and I've talked about this, but consider that we understand that, and we've been told that our fingerprints are so incredibly unique that no one before us has had the same fingerprint, and no one after us will have the same fingerprint. That's pretty unique. But think about the living expression that is you, because that's as unique as your fingerprint. That living expression is not something that is separate from all of creation. It's an integral part, because God is, and God is all that is. So you yourself is an expression of God as you, expressing as life through you, but doing so in an extremely, incredibly, powerfully individualized way. You are an amazing being. But if you just sit and live your life very sedentarily, and I'm not saying you can't find adventure in doing that. There are some people, I'm sure, that could. But if you fail to accept the adventure that is you as your life, I'm here to tell you, you're missing a lot, okay? The moment one realizes he or she can use the creative power of thought to free him or herself from bondage, that moment he or she starts on a new adventure. And when Holmes is talking about bondage, and like I say, I didn't have a chance to review the show from last week. The idea of bondage is basically a belief in limitation on any level, whether it be health, relationship, whether it be financial, whether it be experiential. If you limit yourself by what you believe, and your beliefs create your reality. So if you believe in limitation, that's the reality you're creating, okay? It's time to step out of that. I did say this last week, that we all have our story, or better yet, we all have our history, but we're not our history. Today is a new day. Today is a day to make new choices. Today is a day to step out into that new adventure of you that is you, knowing that as you do so, that the divine principle, that source lives at the core, the center of your being, and it awaits your recognition of it being there, that it may come forth and express as a greater you by expressing as a greater life through you. You have a gift that's just as your fingerprints are unique, so is the gift that you were created to express in this life is uniquely yours. I was speaking to someone a little earlier today who's an artist, and actually she represents an art museum in the Fresno area, and talking about, the great things of art, that it's amazing. Yet we think of artists as something far off or something different from ourselves. But you are an artist. You paint on the canvas of life. You express, and you are tasked with expressing at greater and higher degrees. That's your gift back to God for the day that you have. He says, only as we give the best we have to every passing experience can we hope to enter into the joy of living. The joy of living. You say, well, life's tedious, tough. There's no joy. There is joy when you stop seeing obstacles as something that you can't conquer. You see your life as being subject to the world around you instead of claiming the bigger God that's available to you. That bigger God, bigger than any obstacle. We are supposed to struggle. We are supposed to strain, if you will. Occasionally we fail, but in that failing, if we take the time to learn the lesson, we can pick up and move beyond. When we recognize that we have a bigger God than anything life can bring at us, that we are indomitable, we can move forward, we can continue our adventure, and it's awesome. So, he says it would be impossible to explain the external world without supposing an internal one. The mind or soul stuff which takes form through the impulsions of spiritual energy can be conceived only in terms of consciousness. I spoke a little bit ago about how science has begun to catch up with some of the things that Holmes theorized. And not that the discovery of that was necessarily something that he alone was responsible for. Rather, he recognized the what is, if you will. Consciousness. We used to teach that God was the guy that walked through the garden, and there are people that still incorporate that as part of their spiritual journey. But consider what we call God as consciousness, pure consciousness, creative consciousness, from which all things come from. Well, there are individuals today in the field of physics that are looking out into the infiniteness, and they're going, yeah, well, the idea that this just happened, it was just a big bang and nothing, doesn't really cover what we're discovering. And they've discovered so much, but what they're looking at now is the concept of a creative consciousness behind which all that is. We're consciousness also. Imagine that. Big consciousness, little consciousness. We're all part of the same consciousness. And as such, because we are conscious beings, we have access to and the ability to utilize that which consciousness directs, that we call the creative process. We're going to take our first break. I'll see you when we come back.
Clovis Community College may be free for you to attend. Call 325-5239 or visit cloviscollege.edu for details. We offer general education classes for transfer and short-term training programs.
Body transformations and contest prep. When you need to get fit, contact Gary Torres, IFBB Pro, specializing in weight loss, body transformations, and contest prep. Email Gary Torres 5336@yahoo.com.
Hey, I'm Chris DeVold. Tune in every Friday night on CentralValleyTalk.com when I bring you Sex, Drugs, Chris DeVold, where I'll give you 3 guesses on what we talk about. And I also vow to bring you 1 live local music act a week. So tune in every week because you never know what kind of music you're going to hear right here on CentralValleyTalk.com.
The Space Colony Journals are an epic tale of a family's struggle to survive. Meet the courageous women and dangerous men who dare to carve a home on the alien world of Vensug. Get your copy today. Available on Amazon and Gail Daly's FineArt.com.
You enter this door with expired tags. Beyond is another dimension, a dimension of regulations, a dimension of long waits. You have reached the registration zone. What looks like an ordinary shop is actually Mitchell Smog, located in the heart of the Tower District, a few minutes from the DMV. Mitchell Smog offers your vehicle a STAR-certified smog inspection. So remember Mitchell Smog when you need to pass through the registration zone.
Contact Sarah Hernandez of June and Matte Photography to schedule your portrait, engagement, wedding, or next family photo session. But that's not all. Sarah is also your personal brandographer, helping you ditch the stock photos and get images that sell. Call 559-412-3721. Visit JuneandMattPhoto.com and follow Sarah on Instagram and Facebook. Give your child the tools to succeed.
The Yergubian Academic Center offers one-on-one and group educational lessons by appointment. Over 90% of our students show significant improvement in their academics in just 3 months. Students of the Yergubian Academic Center have gone on to UCLA, UC San Diego, Yale, Stanford, and many more prestigious universities. Schedule a tutoring session today. Call 559-437-3973.
CentralValleyTalk.com.
Welcome back to New Thought Talk. I'm your host, the Reverend Steve Walling. We are going through this thing called life by Dr. Ernest Holmes. We're in chapter 5 right now, and we're moving forward. So we're talking about consciousness. And Holmes goes on to say, he says, we might say that in the beginning there was mind with a capital M, and that this mind is synonymous with God, with design and cosmic order, in such degree as we consciously or unconsciously unify with this cosmic mind, we prosper. We have the ability to choose whether we prosper or not. Most of us live a life of ignorance until we come to a realization that there is a greater truth to be experienced and through experience expressed, and that's what we do in New Thought. We claim our good. We realize that there's a perfect God, perfect life. That perfect God and perfect life is ours, expressed as us. And maybe we're not expressing that perfection right now, but to the extent that we embody our realization of that, and in that embodiment we consciously put it into practice. To that extent, we bring ourselves into greater alignment with that perfection as we express this thing that is our life. So moving on, he says, just as water purifies itself as it flows, so the impure stream of our mental life becomes purified by applied constructive thinking. Trend of thought versus single thought. There's a saying that is commonly bandied about: change your thinking, change your life, or change your thought, change your life. Very simplistic. There's truth in that, but what lies behind the catchphrase is work that we have to do. It's done unto us as we believe. We can utilize this at the level that we believe. It's available to us at the level that we open ourselves up receptively to being a recipient of the good. But again, it all goes back to where are we at in consciousness. If we believe that life is tough, it's tough. If we believe that life is limiting, it's limiting. That's the bondage. Breaking the mental chains that hold us to where we've been starts with a simple thought and then a follow-up and a concerted effort on our part to continually follow up. It's the beginning of the year right now. We're approaching the end of January. A lot of people make those New Year's resolutions. By now, probably 60% of the people that made New Year's resolutions have already broken them. By February 15th, almost all people. Yet we make good resolutions. We think about the things that we want to achieve, or the things that we want to be, our beingness, and generally speaking, they're all very positive. And yet we drop, we lose, we forget, we fail, and then we move on to the rest of the year. When we begin to realize the true power that we have at our beck and call, that our ability to utilize that power in our day-to-day life experience, and then our claim to our personal position within that power, we have to follow up. We have to make that commitment. We have to follow through. It's done unto us as we believe. But beliefs sometimes are embedded pretty substantially. Oftentimes they're beliefs we're not even aware of that we hold. He says, fate, the fate that we believe in, we bring to pass. This is true both individually and collectively. Individually, the fate for myself. Collectively, the fate of our society. Looking out in the world today, where do you think our belief system, our societal belief is? Rather chaotic, isn't it? New thought, science of mind and spirit adherents sometimes get caught up in the chaos, and they allow it to drag them a little away, or sometimes a great distance away from being in harmony with this one mind, this thing called life. When we recognize that we're not experiencing the life that we want to experience, a life that as we experience it, it allows us to prosper in all levels, health, abundance, relationship, self-expression. And in that doing, we take nothing from anybody. We see a greater response, a greater demonstration. Unfortunately, there are many people that, because they are so buried into the belief of limitation, that they, as they look out in the world, the only way that they see that they can move beyond limitation is for them to take from somebody else. That's where good, healthy boundaries come in. But if we are dealing with individuals like that, we put up our boundaries, our healthy boundaries, but we still love the individual beyond that boundary, because that keeps us in alignment with principle. And the greater in alignment with principle we are, the greater principle demonstrates in our life. The greater principle demonstrates in our life, the greater that we are capable of experiencing the results of that demonstration, and we can grow our belief. Belief based in faith is powerful belief. Belief based in experience is like the catalyst to grow faith at greater and higher degrees, amounts, if you will, of faith. So we move forward. We can utilize this. It's available to us. He says, can you imagine a power so great that it is both an infinite presence and a limitless law? If you can, you are drawing close to a better idea of the way life works, life with a capital L, the way divine works, the way God works. It's not about someone else. It's not about what's going on in the chaos in the maelstrom that surrounds us. It's about what's going on at the heart, the center of our being, where we're at in consciousness. The good news is that we are, as I said last time, we are the captain of our ship, the masters of our fate, the directors of our play, if you will, the screenwriters for the movie that we seek to express as our life. We can grab it. We can hold it. We're going to have struggle. We're going to have obstacles. But if you accept the fact that you have a bigger God, a greater good available to you, you can step up to those challenges and be confident within yourself. And confidence is a very powerful enhancer of our faith. If we stand confidently in our faith, it becomes almost invincible, if not totally invincible. We grow. He says, he talks about, he says, did you ever stop to think that everything that is visible is projected into form from some invisible power? The idea that there is no new form in creation. But there's so many things that humankind has yet to discover, to experience. That's true. But in creation, the concept, the principle, the form, the necessary wherewithal to fill that form already exists. We just have to find it, accept it, claim it, be receptive to it. He says here, now, what do you suppose could take one substance, one law, one presence, and one power and make an infinite variation of this thing? What do you think? He says, it would be impossible to conceive of anything doing this other than life itself, speaking itself into existence through many ideas. This is what is meant by the words, I am. Life says, I am this, I am that. You say, I am this, I am that. To the extent that you believe it, it begins to demonstrate. To the extent that you hold to that, it continues to demonstrate. Things like doubt, fear, anger, so on. When we say they have no basis in truth, what we're saying is that this thing called life, this one mind, divine consciousness, God, doesn't know doubt, doesn't know limitation. It's infinite. You can't say, and I started to say that it's confident, but it's not confident because confidence is not necessary to the what is. It's just the absolute knowingness, the absolute beingness. And when Judge Tord talked about the idea of, relative, absolute, to the extent that we live in the relative, to that extent we're not in the absolute. But what is that absolute? Absolute is the absolute of creation, the absolute of perfection, the absolute of all. It's the, if you will, the entirety of divine principle of God, that absolute. And yet some part of that absolute is our individualized. It's ours. It's our gift. He says, life works by direct affirmation. There is no other way for it to work. This is why we are told to be still and know that all things are possible to God. To be still. Again, I was talking to someone late yesterday, and they were talking about their life has taken a shift where they're at today. They have kind of been in an enforced place in their life where external stuff has not been available to them, around them, and their first encounter with that was one of, what am I going to do type of consciousness, to now it's one of an acceptance of the blessing, the gift that it is, because for them, the static, the cacophony of all that stuff that goes on in the back of our mind has been moved away, shifted away, removed from their life. And what they found there is blessings, abundance, gift. And in re-expressing their life through that lens, if you will, they're re-enjoying the adventure that is their life. And they are amazed, and they are grateful, and they are excited. And, that's available to each of us as we take the time to choose to find it. To live in conscious communion with life, even for a short time, will convert our fears into faith, our doubts into certainty, our hurt and sense of failure into something triumphant. There is a sublime and divine hope for everyone who is willing to surrender his or herself to this great good, to the warm embrace of the oversoul in whose lap, Emerson tells us, we lie as in the lap of an infinite intelligence. Every man has a subliminal depth to his being. We can plant our feet firmly on this faith and realize that we are divine beings now. The choice is ours. Can you plant your feet today? Can you accept that? Can you claim that? Can you be willing to begin to claim it? Sometimes we're overwhelmed by the massiveness of what that is. But we don't have to be overwhelmed by the first step we take. And I've been running way long, so I'm going to take a break, and I'll see you when we come back.
Hi, everyone. I am Sparkle Sujin with the Everything Sparkle Show. Tune in every Thursday live at 4 p.m. You will see people that are motivational, inspirational, inspiring, and, of course, entertaining. We have a great time. We learn things about how big celebrities are inspiring big names here in Fresno. Hugh Hefner is the reason we have Fresno Magazine, and Gnarly Charlie got his start because Johnny Carson told him to. So, tune in, you'll learn something new, and have a good time.
Highlights, balayage, color, extensions, cuts, pure Brazilian blowouts, treatments. Contact Jordan Myers at Hair by Jordan.
Did you know most hair and beauty salons in the Central Valley are not disposing of their chemicals correctly? Partner with us today to become an eco-friendly salon. Visit us online at greenbeautywaste.com. Our phone number is 559-367-7206. And be sure to visit us on Instagram and Facebook at Green Beauty Waste.
The Saga of Bridget and Amanda by Carol Love Forbes brings to life the struggles of historical women in early America. Find the Saga of Bridget and Amanda on Amazon and Barnes & Noble and order your copy today.
This segment is brought to you by Mike Briggs Properties. The recession's over. It's now safe to sell your home. Call Mike Briggs Properties.
Is everything in life draining you? Come to Stretch 360. Our professional staff can offer you many options for relaxation like deep tissue or hot stone massages, infrared medical grade sauna. Once you leave us, you'll look and feel like $1,000,000. Stretch 360. Relaxation is only a stretch away.
For all your real estate needs, call Julia Tadich with Clovis First, 559-323-2213, or visit clovisfirst.com. That's CLOVIS, numeral 1, ST.com. Whether you're looking to buy a home or sell a home, get a loan, or whatever the case may be, call Julia Tadich.
The Art of Becoming Who We Are in Christ by Jolene Kennedy is a book about the process of maturity as we find our true identity since God's promises must be received, embraced, and activated within us. Get your copy today and check out JoleneKennedy.com. If you're looking for a firm that will focus on your individual needs and always treat you like a customer who matters, then look no further than DS Financial Services. DS Financial Services is large enough to offer a full range of professional services, but small enough to give you the individual attention that you deserve. Call DS Financial Services at 559-840-0202 and visit dsfs.com.
Welcome back to New Thought Talk. I'm your host, Reverend Steve Walling. So, before I get back to this thing called life, in The Science of Mind, Ernest Holmes put 4 introductory chapters. The thing itself, the way it works, what it does, and how to use it. The 2 middle chapters, the way it works and what it does, are some of my more favorite. I mean, the whole book is, it's always an incredible read. You can drop the book, wherever it opens, start reading there, and there's gonna be some gems to be had. But the what it does and the way it works are 2 of my more favorite chapters to read throughout the year, just to keep me focused. And in the what it does, on page 46, Dr. Holmes, under the title "The Principle Restated," he says, "Let us restate our principle. We are surrounded by an infinite possibility. It is goodness, life, law, and reason. In expressing itself through us, it becomes more fully conscious of its own being. Therefore, it wishes to express through us. As it passes into our being, it automatically becomes the law of our lives. It can pass into expression through us only as we consciously allow it to do so. Therefore, we should have faith in it and its desires, and its ability to do for us all that we shall ever need to have done." There's more to that. That's kind of what we're saying here. All that we shall ever need, everything we could need, want, desire, it awaits us as long as we're not taking from any other being, as long as we're living in alignment with principle, loving God with all we are and loving our neighbor as ourself. Think we can do that? Think you can do that? You know, I think we can. I think maybe we have to, some mornings when we arise, make that a more conscious choice. But as we continue to do that, at some point, it's going to become our nature. And as it becomes our nature, it becomes our reality. And for each of us that creates that reality individually, we add to the greater reality. He says, life works by direct affirmation. There is no other way for it to work. This is why we are told to be still and know. Okay, we got that. He says, why are we told to do this? Because this is the way life, God, works. It knows nothing about discord or fear. It forever sings the song of its own being. This song burst forth from joy of its own inner wholesomeness and wholeness. We too could become part of this celestial choir if we knew how rightly to affirm life. What is it we are going to affirm? We're going to affirm that life is good. We're going to do this even though everything we see and touch seems to contradict the allness of life. You know, going back to this idea of bondage, the most powerful chains of our bondage is really our 5 senses, because we look to those as the definers, if you will, of our day-to-day life experience. Moving beyond that to something greater. You know, last week we talked about living life as a spiritual being, living spiritually. people oftentimes get a little uncomfortable. There's certain stereotypic images that come into our minds when we think about that. And we don't necessarily want to be associated with that idea. Not all the time, but sometimes. We have to set that stuff aside because a greater good awaits us. He says it's normal to believe in God. It's natural to believe that good has more power than evil, that love can heal hate. What if we've been disappointed and chagrined? What if we have suffered many disillusionments, many emotional embarrassments? Let us not forget that darkness has no power over light, just as the warm rays of the sun will melt the largest iceberg. So the persistent inner perception of an abiding order presence will heal our fears. We have a bigger God. It's our adventure. It's a good adventure. We can do this. One of the things I read recently is a recent study that, it's one of those things that as you're attempting to do something, self-talk can be a motivator, but the most important self-talk that we can do, the highest degree of motivation is not, I can do this, I can. And not that that's not bad or that that's bad. It's not too bad. But if you affirm that you can in the third person, as if you're an observer, you can do this. You can achieve. You can overcome. You can strive. You can survive. You can win. You can grow. Put things in that. You got to ask yourself, why is that more powerful than saying I can? I'll leave you to reflect on that. You're bigger, greater, more awesome than what you might believe that you are. He says, to live in conscious communion with life, even for a short time, will convert our fears into faith, our doubts into certainty, our hurts and sense of failure into something triumphant. He says, there is but one creative principle. It is always responding to us. There is but one power, and we are using it either negatively or affirmatively. The great affirmation is the affirmation of the goodness and the givingness of this power. The adventure of our life, we can do this. The adventure of our life, we are divinely guided and guarded. The adventure of our life is to take time sometimes and sense the life principle. Again, we get caught up in the chaos of the day. One of the powerful benefits of taking time to meditate, and meditation is not affirmative treatment. Meditation is simply meditation, quieting the mind as a mindfulness meditation. There are many different modes, ways of meditating, but however your preferred way may be, in that process, seek to sense the life that is living you. You can do it. People do it all the time. The energy flows through, the energy that beats the heart, the energy that's in the abdominal area, the energy that's in the mind, and it's there. And it's there to be recognized. And in that recognition, we can commune with it, combine with it, and embody it as part of our greater spiritual toolbox. We talked a little bit about toolbox last week also. We have potential in our day-to-day life expression. We have the potential of a toolbox that is filled beyond our ability to even recognize all the tools that are there. But we can only use what we can self-define. We can only use what we have had the opportunity to possibly utilize or begin to seek. The tools that we don't know we have, we may use them, stumble across them randomly. It's kind of like, it's a metaphor that's used often, but it's still a good one. If Moses would have known what electricity was when he walked the face of the earth, would have had light bulbs a long time ago, wouldn't we? But he didn't know. It was just a power, just this thunder and lightning. As humanity began to look at the idea of electricity as maybe a principle, and a principle that could be utilized, and in that utilization, individuals began to push and prod, theorize, project, experiment, and in so doing, we created the world we live in today, and it's an amazing world. To live in constant, conscious communication with life, even for a short time, will convert our fears into faith. Even for a short time. Even if it's fleeting. It's our adventure. That lightning bolt gonna move across the sky of our mind. Can we look at it, reflect upon it, consider that we could maybe find the principle behind it? I think we can. There is but one creative principle. It's always responding to us. There is but one power, and we are using it, either negatively or affirmatively. A single thought has a degree of creativity, a trend of thinking becomes more powerful in its creative demonstration. It's kind of like a drop of water versus a cup of water versus a massive river, a river at high flood, the ocean, something beyond that. It's available to us. He says, your thoughts are tools that you use in affirming the creative power into your experience. You use in affirming the creative power into your experience. You can affirm it. You're going to be pushing maybe against the tide, but if you stay the course, ultimately, you'll reach the goal that you seek. You cannot not do so because you have a bigger God, a greater God. There's more power available to you than you can imagine. But you gotta open yourself up to the idea of imagining greater, even if it's a little greater to begin with, and practice, and practice, and continue to practice. Okay? He says it may seem strange at first to think that we can affirm something into existence where nothing seemed to be, but it is not. But is not this true when we draw a picture, mold a form, plant a seed? Anyone wishing to demonstrate the availability of the law of life must certainly accept the dynamic reality of affirmation. Affirmation is the greatest and fundamentally the only creative agency in the universe. Everything that is, whether we realize it or not, is some affirmation of life. This thing called life. Ours to use, ours to put into our day-to-day life adventure. So, as I'm going to close today, I want you to consider, we'll finish up chapter 5 next week. Consider that there is an adventure that is entitled whatever your name is, that you are the adventurer in that adventure, that life will respond to you, divine principle will respond to you, that you are a wizard, a scientist, an achiever, you are an army of consciousness, you are an acceptor, a receptor of the greater good of all that is. You're that and that much more. You are the I am of your life. You know, think about it. Reflect on it this week. Practice this week. When we come back next week or then the next show, you know, be ready to pick up, move on. If you happen to have a copy of the textbook, I highly recommend that you read the first 4 introductory chapters. Pay close attention to the way it works, what it does. Creativity is the way it works, and you are what it does. You are that awesome. The thing itself, I think we got, and how to use it, that's our journey. Think about it. You can reach me, you can email me, you can send me prayer requests. I respond. You know, just go for it. I like to hear from you. As you go through the week, know the light of God surrounds you, the love of God enfolds you, the power of God protects you, the presence of God watches over you. Because wherever you are, God is there. All is well. Have a great week, my friends. I'll see you when I come back. Thank you for being with me today. Bye.